Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. With currencies in fluctuation, capital controls in places, and banks on the brink of yet another bailout, there's only one person to turn to in these turbulent times. David Morgan of silver-investor.com. David, welcome back to the Keiser Report.
Max, it's great to be back.
All right, David Morgan, what's happening with silver? What's happening? The Silver Liberation Army wants to know what's going on.
Well, Max, we've had a very trying 2-year consolidation period since we hit the maximum price in this bull market so far of around $48 in the end of April 2011. I was looking at the long-term chart before the show, and we got to the $21 level in '08, and then we had the financial crisis of '08. We got under 10, and it took about 2 years for silver to get back up to the $20 level again. I equate it to a similar process here. We ran up from like 19 all the way to 48 in a few months. It was a very, very wonderful time for silver investors. And then we peaked. We had margin increases about 4 or 5 times. The market finally was broken down. And we've been in consolidation ever since. And again, it's been about 2 years. I am still very bullish, Max. And I think also that we're probably near the end of the bottoming process here. Obviously, when you make a risk like that, saying that this is it, I could be right, I could be wrong. But normally those kind of consolidations, duration, 2 years is about it. And I think we're there, especially with what's in the background, which really is the foreground, what's going on in the world currency markets. I mean,
okay, let me cut in there for a second, because you have the situation where we know that the ceiling on silver is there in place by banks. Banks on Wall Street, JP Morgan, for example. They don't want silver going above a certain level. They want to support their derivatives market that requires quantitative easing, 0% interest rates. If silver or gold were to go up, it would look like inflation, and then they couldn't get away with keeping interest rates near zero, so they keep it down. In that chasm, in that gap of free markets, you've got Bitcoin. Bitcoin emerged out of nowhere. It's now got a market cap of $1 billion. Silver's got a market cap of about $29 billion. That's what the worth of all the silver above ground is worth, about $29 billion. That's, Bitcoin's going to exceed silver in market cap. It's going to go to 30, 40, 50 billion. Silver's still going to be there sucking its thumb. I mean, you've got Eric Sprott in Canada. You've got the Silver Liberation Army. What's it going to take to break the cartel, David Morgan? Is it just, we just don't have the firepower? There's not the will? People want to be enslaved? What's the problem?
The problem is the people. You're right. And I think shows like yours, people like myself, Jim Willie, all the other guests that you have on, it's an educational process. The process takes time, and the psychology, the bankers are winning the psychology war right now. I mean, if you look at what the mainstream news is, there's lots of articles about gold going nowhere during the Cyprus crisis. So that's a psychological warfare attack.
Okay, but I understand that, David Morgan. We're losing the psychological war, but there's a new player who's making the silver bulls like Sprott look like a monkey, because here you have a digital currency that's suddenly making all the silver bulls out there look like monkeys. But let's talk about some other monkeys, and those are people who did not own silver and gold at all because they said it might be confiscated. Meanwhile, the people with silver and gold still have their silver and gold, and it was the bank accounts that were confiscated. Your thoughts?
Well, that's a very touchy topic, obviously, Max. Personally, I don't think it'll be confiscated. However, there's arguments both sides. I don't have time to go into all the arguments for and against. If either one would be confiscated, I think it'd be more gold than silver. Gold's certainly got a place in the monetary system with the elite bankers. Silver hasn't for, since like 1873 on an official basis. So if either one would be confiscated, gold is more likely. Again, I doubt either one, but you could argue the other side, and there are people that are adamant about confiscation taking place. Again, I doubt it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that there was an argument from people who were concerned, oh my God, my precious metals are going to be confiscated. I'm going to keep my money in the bank instead. They now have had their money taken from them. So that they are the monkeys. They are the losers. They are the suckers at the poker game. But let's talk about silver in terms of it currently in backwardation during a down market. This is, again, highly irregular. Remind the audience what backwardation is and how unusual it is, especially during a down market. David Morgan.
The backwardation is where the spot or the current price, meaning when you want it right now, right here, today, is at a greater or higher price than the price in the future. The market is settled on a futures basis, meaning that all of this paper that's flying around that is not real is what sets the price for both gold and silver. In that domain, you have a price that means to get the real metal, it costs you more than it would in the future, which is backwards. You usually get what's called contango, which is an interest rate, and it's the current interest rate, which is near zero, what you pay in the future for any commodity. If it's wheat, it doesn't matter, wheat, corn, silver. So what normally it would cost less for today for some price in the future because of the interest rate. But when it costs more, it's usually an indication that the market is very tight. I know that the physical market is tight. I know that the bag market, which is a good leading indicator, is extremely tight. Premiums on bag, which usually sell at a discount to melt value, are at a premium right now. So the physical market is starting to move away from the actual paper markets, or the paper bugs as I call them, yet the market seems to really not be paying much attention basis the price of silver currently.
All right, now David Morgan, one way to judge the value of silver is to look at the overall above ground supply of silver and gold as compared to the money supply. It could be the money supply in America, it could be the money supply in the world. Now, since 2008, tell us about the relationship between the price of gold and silver and what's happened to the global money supply and what this tells us.
Well, I'd like to go back a little further than that just to make it very clear, but if you, and Michael Maloney does a good job of this as well, but if you take the basic M1, I'm just talking currency only, and cover that with gold. If you did that in 1980 with all the currency that existed in the United States covered by the gold that the United States purportedly had, you would come out with a dollar price of $400 an ounce. Yet the price of gold went over 800. If we did that again in 2000, the gold price would be 2,500. And remember, these are using government stats. This is not using what we really know is out there, but we'll use their numbers. So right now, from 2000 to now, there's been an explosion in the amount of money printing worldwide, and gold certainly has moved up, but it has certainly not covered the gold clause. In other words, it hasn't covered one-to-one the amount of money that's been printed. In order to do that, you're probably looking at a price north of $5,000. And remember, I'm talking M1 only. I'm not talking about M2 or all the debt that's out there to cover that. So gold is very, very underpriced. There's certainly reasons why the banksters want to make sure that the general public doesn't understand it. Max, just want to go one step further. Right now, generally speaking, if you use CPM's latest study, they say that about 1% of the world's asset is invested in gold. 1% is a very small amount, as we know. It wouldn't take a lot to double that to 2%. If there was another a doubling of the amount of people who are interested in precious metals and bought physical metal, the price would take off astronomically. It's that tight a market right now. Okay. And I think that's going.
Right. The problem is you've got a ceiling there because of the manipulations from JP Morgan and other banks. Now, a judge in New York recently dismissed the lawsuit against the Caligula of Wall Street, Jamie Dimon, and his corrupt organization, JP Morgan, for silver price manipulation. In dismissing the case, the judge did not say that the litigants had demonstrated that JP Morgan could manipulate prices, or they proved that they could manipulate prices, and they showed them quite clearly how they could manipulate prices. But the judge was saying that they had no incentive to manipulate prices, so therefore they were innocent. Even the judge was presented with evidence of JP Morgan manipulating prices. You saw their thumbprints on the illegal activity. They had the knife in the back of the little old lady and was twisting it, and blood was gushing out of her skull. And the judge said, well, maybe so, but I don't see why they would do it. So they're innocent. Your thoughts?
Not surprised, Max. I've maintained from the beginning of this debate about the manipulation and all the effort that's been done by several particularly in the silver side, GATA as well, and they've done excellent work, and I support them. I've given them money. But I'm not surprised that the judicial system has acted in this way. We are at the end of an empire. I mean, you were in the Four Horsemen with me. You know that things have gotten so corrupted throughout the entire system, not only the monetary system, the food chain, the water supply, the air we breathe, everything is corrupted to a point beyond belief. And so to be surprised that the authorities didn't do the right thing, I'm not shocked at all. I'm disappointed. I like to believe that there's somebody out there that speaks for truth, justice, and the American American way. But no, that's a myth. It doesn't happen anymore.
All right, you mentioned The Four Horsemen. That, of course, is a film that came out last year, an excellent film available on DVD. There's another film coming out called Bailout 2, starring Max Keiser, which is now seeking crowdfunding on the internet, which you might be interested in. David Morgan and everyone else watching this show. Now, you were also involved and have been involved, David Morgan, in various initiatives, including Utah, to allow silver to be adopted as money. What's happening there?
It's stalled out, Max, really. Unfortunately, the only way to really implement it in today's society is to put it in a depository, put the gold and silver in a depository, issue a debit card, and then allow the debit card to be used in everyday transactions. It's a very simply implemented system, but it's stalled out. I do have some friends that have actually started a system that does that exact thing, and I've got a hold of Larry Hilton, who was instrumental in writing the bill with Mr. Gonzalez, and we're going to probably fly them out here or vice versa and discuss how they could implement a debit card back system with real gold and silver in a depository. And that, again, is, I think, the only way to really implement it and get it off the ground.
All right, now, I saw some videos recently from folks on the internet who walk up to strangers, essentially, and they hold out a silver eagle, a 1 ounce silver coin that trades for, $29, $30. And they say it's a silver dollar, and they say, would you buy this for $1? In other words, would you buy $30 worth of silver for $1? And almost everybody declined that offer. Everyone said no, they wouldn't. They either had no idea what silver is worth, they had no idea what a silver dollar is, they had no idea what silver is. In other words, the level of ignorance in this market is enormous. You talk about the educational effort, it hasn't made a dent. People are still brain dead when it comes to money and precious metals and the value of the folding paper in their pockets. Is it because they're incapable of ever becoming educated? They've been dumbed down by the other things in the Four Horsemen we talked about, the drugs, the environmental catastrophe, the political corruption. In other words, this is a whole generation that we can write off as brain dead. Or will there be hope? Is there any hope that people in America and around the world will escape the imprisonment of their own stupidity? David Morgan.
Well said, Max. Yes, there is. The internet's doing a great job. Shows like yours doing a fantastic job. You have something special, Max, with your ability to bring humor to a very dire situation. As I said earlier, we've got 1% in the gold market. It only would take 2% to blow the doors off this thing. I think that's going to happen. It is going to take some time. But I think the younger generation is really, really seeking the truth. And they are like when I was younger, one time before I turned 30, don't trust anyone over 30 or 40. I think that's very true of today's younger generation, and I think they'll find it. I do think that, there's nothing in the mainstream media that's pro gold or silver. It's always negative, Cyprus events taking place. Look, gold's been down 3 days in a row, and on it goes. But internet's free markets, at least so far, and you can get real news like yours. I do think that you will see an exodus out of currencies and into the metals, probably a lot into the Bitcoin situation or similar products. And people are seeking a way to protect themselves and to escape basically the banksters' slavery mechanism of a debt-based currency.
All right, David Morgan, we'll have to leave it there. We're out of time. Thanks for being on the Keiser Report.
My pleasure, Max. Thank you.
All right, and that's going to do it for this edition of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and the gorgeous Stacey Herbert. And I want to thank my guest, David Morgan of silver-investor.com. If you'd like to send us an email, please do so at kaiserreport@rttv.ru. Are you ready for the truth? Until next time, Max Keiser saying bye, y'all.